messing up my press conference here? Are you being disruptive?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, very good. Y'all can get a little closer. You're going to be out of the shot, okay? I mean, you guys took photos before? Usually have smaller folks in the front, tall people in the back, get a little close. I mean, y'all spent 6 months together. You'd think you'd know each other by now. We are very pleased to be here to make this announcement this morning. You're going to hear from a number of speakers, Council President Clarke, Councilman at Large W. Wilson Goode, Jr., the Chair of the Jobs Commission, Bob Nelson, but I'm joined by all of the members, and first and foremost, I want to thank them for their dedication, their commitment to this effort. Council President Clarke, again, let me thank you for your commitment regarding job creation in Philadelphia, and of course, Councilman W. Wilson Goode, Jr., who served on the commission. Deputy Mayor for Economic Development, Alan Greenberger, thank you for your work and your team, and in particular, Kevin Dow, Chief Operating Officer for the Commerce Department, who worked very closely with the Commission and many other staff members. All the members of the Commission, and those, some of whom are either directly in the administration or run quasi-governmental agencies, Bill Hart over at RISE, and of course Mark Edwards at Philly Works, and the chairman of the Jobs Commission, the one, the only, Bob Nelson. Before I talk more about the Jobs Commission, I also want to mention that we will have a ceremonial bill signing for a bill that was, prime sponsor was Councilman W. Wilson Goode, Jr., that makes permanent a tax credit for new job creation, which was also one of the recommendations of the Jobs Commission. This commission was established to explore what city government can do to help create and retain primarily private sector jobs in Philadelphia. And my administration has no higher priority than growing our economy, creating economic vitality and opportunity, and increasing the number of jobs available specifically for Philadelphians. I want to thank the Commission for its research, its analysis, and its recommendations on this crucial issue for our city. We will review the report very closely and, working with Council President Clarke, Councilman W. Wilson Goode, Jr., and many members of City Council, certainly carefully review all of the recommendations and look forward, I would expect, to implementing many of them. The issues highlighted by the Commission are, of course, of great importance. The ideas contained within this report can only help to support our economic development strategy here in the city. From day one of my first term, we've been committed to helping businesses start here, stay here, and grow right here in Philadelphia, and to expanding economic opportunities for all Philadelphians, especially many who have been left out or locked out of true opportunity. We work to fix some of the basics, creating a more open and transparent, business-friendly government with reforms to the Department of License and Inspections, the creation of an Office of Business Services, and the merger of our workforce development systems, just to name a couple issues. Working with Philadelphia City Council, we've implemented a number of changes to our taxes that make it easier for businesses to get started and operate in the city, and for us to attract new businesses to Philadelphia. We're expanding opportunities for women, minority-owned businesses, and disabled businesses as well through the Office of Economic Opportunity. We've overhauled our zoning code, again, a great achievement by our city government and specifically by City Council in the final process and the Zoning Code Commission. This is the first major overhaul and reform in 50 years, and to make it easier and more predictable to get projects moving in our city while also respecting the community process. We've made significant investments in our neighborhoods and commercial corridors through the Office of Neighborhood Economic Development and expect to do more. A recent infusion of dollars upon agreement between the City Council and the administration will result in more economic vitality in commercial corridors across our city. And every day, we're pursuing aggressively new companies that may be new to the city or could expand in the city to persuade them to come to Philadelphia, expand in Philadelphia, and create new jobs for Philadelphians. As a result of much of this work and an improving economy, we're seeing major investment return to Philadelphia and new initiatives to support entrepreneurship and job growth in our city. There are currently more than 30 major construction projects in progress across Philadelphia, representing about $3 billion in economic activity. Just last week, thanks to the construction of a new state-of-the-art headquarters by GlaxoSmithKline, the 10,000th employee started working at the Philadelphia Navy Yard, the most successful turnaround of any former military facility in the United States of America. One of the most active venture capital firms in the United States, First Round Capital, moved their headquarters into Philadelphia from the suburbs in recognition of our city's growing presence as a hub for entrepreneurs and startup firms, something we're supporting through our Startup PHL initiative. And companies from the suburbs are establishing gateway offices in Philadelphia in order to access the very talented workforce in our city, given the proliferation of great colleges and universities in and around Philadelphia. Working closely with Councilman Bobby Heenan, we recently established a manufacturing task force to make recommendations on how we can strengthen Philadelphia's manufacturing sector. And at the beginning of this year, Goldman Sachs announced that it was investing $15 million in lending and business education for small businesses in Philadelphia. These are many of the positive signs in this city, but there is so much more to do. And we're committed to doing more and to making our city a place of choice for investments and to create job opportunities for Philadelphians. The last few years, as everyone knows, have been incredibly tough for our city and cities all across America, taking a particularly hard toll on the least well-off among us. My administration is committed, and I know that City Council is committed as well, to doing all that we can to spur the recovery, to expand opportunity, and to help businesses stay here, start here, stay here, and grow right in Philadelphia. The work of the Jobs Commission and the recommendations provided in this report are an important step in the right direction. And with that, let me introduce our City Council President, Council President Darrell Clarke. You are right behind me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Again, another good day. I'd like to say briefly, a little over a year ago, we were talking about jobs in the office, just talking shop. Having been in government for a whole lot of years, more than I care to mention, one of the most challenging things that we've ever had to experience is creating jobs for all the citizens of the city of Philadelphia. As you'll hear later on, some of the most difficult people to employ. So we start thinking about creating some entity outside of government because we thought it's important to have a third-party source look at job creation. We in government, we work every day, and the mayor, you and your team, they do a great job with the Commerce Department, Council. You'll hear Councilman Good later on always coming up with creative ideas, but at the end of the day, the reality is that most jobs are created by the private sector. So as we talk about a process and an entity to talk about job creation in a meaningful way, why not create an entity that have people in the private sector come up with a game plan? So we decided to move ahead and create the Jobs Commission, and we went through the process of establishing an ordinance that created a ballot referendum, and fortunately, the overwhelming majority of the citizens said, yes, we want to see a job commission that talks about laying out a blueprint for a job creation strategy, separate and aside with what we already have in government. And we've got, I believe, some of the finest people that I've known, most of you I've known over the years, coming to the table and providing what I think has been some very, very significant public service. You may not think about it that way. You're just doing what you normally do, care about people. But the reality is what you've done, I hope will be talked about years from now as we surpass the national economy as it relates to job creation. And we tick under that 7.8 as it relates to the unemployment rate. So I just want to say today, Mayor, I want to thank you for being supportive. My colleagues in council, the staff in government, from the Commerce Department, led by Alan, and my guy Will Carter, who's definitely overworked because he pretty much is involved in everything. But most importantly, I just want to thank you, members of the commission, guys, for the great work you've done. Real quiet, unassuming, week after week, sitting down. I don't know about being quiet, Mr. Nelson. That's a little some people say that's not necessarily. But the leadership that you provided, I got to take a cheap shot. But the leadership that you provided and the many leaders in their own rights and in their own fields, guys, I want to say thank you, genuinely. Thank you so much for your support and your leadership in these very crucial issues. So thank you again. And Mayor, thank you again for your support on this very important issue.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I will be very brief because I believe that the report should speak for itself. So in other words, read it. I simply want to congratulate my fellow commissioners on approving solid recommendations that can help the city create and maintain jobs. That was our charge. My work on the commission was simply an extension of my previous and current work as Economic Development Administrator in the Rendell Administration. I worked with Steve Mullen, who also worked with the Jobs Commission, and as Chair of Council's Commerce Economic Development Committee since then. It's a life work. Creating economic opportunity is a life work that is never done. Issues like poverty, homelessness, unemployment are real tough issues. The good news is any progress that we actually can make on these issues help real people, hopefully lots of people. But even if we reach full employment, our next task would be simply to maintain full employment. So our goal is a bit more simple than that. It is to create more jobs than we lose. So our charge on an annual basis is to look at net job gain. So I'm here today simply to actually thank the Council President for starting this new discussion on net job creation, how we create more jobs than we lose. And these recommendations are serious and should be taken serious, but we're still open to all new good ideas. Pun intended. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. On that one-of-a-kind guide, it was referenced earlier in that regard. I certainly want to thank both Council President Clarke and the Mayor for appointing me as chairperson of this commission. This has really been a good thing, a very positive thing, because I was in a room once a month in other subcommittee meetings with the members of this commission, some of whom are here. And what kind of glued us all together was passion and just a real concern about unemployment in the city of Philadelphia. And when you work with a group of people who are passionate about that as a goal, then it makes life real easy. We are indeed proud of the report that has been submitted and approved, certainly by the Mayor and City Council President. And in many ways, it was a labor of love. My day jobs with OIC were a training institution, so this was kind of an extension of that work that I do on a daily basis. The one thing that drove me personally, however, was when we look at 10.2 unemployment. Well, we know that we could double or triple that in minority communities and among the reentry populations, for example. But what I also understand that for any individual in the city of Philadelphia who's unemployed, they could care less about being aggregated within a 10.2 statistic, because in that particular household, it's 100%. And it's that level of sensitivity and understanding that needs to guide the work. And our report, again, has been referenced. This is a blueprint. We don't want it to sit on a shelf. We don't want it to gather dust. We want it to be reviewed and come back and say, these are the things that we can do, because we really have to be able to make sure for private sector employment in the city of Philadelphia. So, gentlemen and the commission members, I thank you. It was an honor to be with you and to work with you.
Thank you, Chairman Nelson, certainly Council President Clarke, and Councilman Good. Let me say a few words about the bill that will make permanent the special tax credit opportunity for job creation that was introduced by Councilman W. Wilson Good, Jr. This legislation also extends the tax credit from $3,000 up to $5,000 for each new job created. This is a job-creating measure that will support more economic development in our city. According to the most recent report from 2011, more than 1,040 jobs have been created under this and utilizing this tax credit, resulting in $1.5 million in tax credits for Philadelphia businesses. I have no doubt that businesses will continue to take advantage of this tax credit in the years to come while putting more Philadelphians to work. We're going to slide over here for a second. The Council President and I are going to sign the bill, and then we'll come back to the podium, and we'll be glad to take any questions that any of you might have. this thing on? Bill number 121039. It is the law in Philadelphia. Thank you. And so with that, let me, again, as has been mentioned, really thank not only, of course, Bob Nelson as the chair, but all the members of this commission, mostly really made up of citizens who dedicated a whole lot of time and effort, folks who have regular daytime jobs and other things to do, and we captured not only some of their time, but a lot of their great ideas for this report. So with that, we'd be glad to take any questions from the news media. Yes, sir.
You presented an impressive list of things that you're already doing to create jobs. Does the recommendations of this report, I mean, is it a major course change, just trimming the sails a little bit? How do you dovetail what you're doing with what they're recommending?
Well, personally, I don't know that I've ever actually trimmed a sail, so I don't know a great deal about that. I think that, I mean, I just received the report this morning, but we had a briefing a little while ago. There are a series of recommendations. I think many are directly in line with a number of things that we're doing, but all of those things, one, can always be enhanced. We have to do more. Our unemployment rate is still too high, and a mismatch between, in some instances, jobs that are actually available versus the skill sets that people have. Second, there are always more things that we can do, and that's part of the purpose of getting a report from folks who are out in the real world on a daily basis. Not that government isn't real, but at times it can be slightly surreal and very different than what's happening in the marketplace, and a place where, you know, entrepreneurs and people who've been in business for a long time are out there struggling under any number of regulations, legislation, or other issues that the government either is doing or things that we should stop doing. And I think that this report, as Bob characterized it in the earlier meeting, really helps us from a blueprint standpoint, a great base and a foundation of work that we should look at. So many of the things that we're doing, we will keep doing because we've had some success. But having this additional input can only enhance what we're doing over at Commerce or PIDC or Philly Works or any number of quasi-public and nonprofit organizations that we partner with on a regular basis. Yes?
Were there any, there was a lot of recommendations, and some of them are recommendations for more commission and more study. And but are there any recommendations that you found interesting, unusual, different, that surprised you?
In terms of the first part of what you suggested, I think what I took from the earlier conversation was no one wants to ever spend their time working on a document, coming up with great recommendations, and it's just that. It's just a document with a lot of recommendations. So, again, whether we have, you know, a continuation of the commission or not, is the larger issue is about implementation. A report is only as good as the implementation, and what we're focused on and what we're committed to is implementation. That somewhere within all of our resources, as tight as resources are, we need to figure out how do we implement many of the recommendations. A couple of things that jumped out at me, and Councilman Good mentioned, the folks thought that overall, you know, fixing the property assessment system was a good thing. And there'll be obviously various opinions about how it affects individual homeowners. A longer-term strategy about tax reform and tax reduction, critically important, things we've talked about in the past, and things that we've done in the past. How do we better utilize many of the dollars that come into Philadelphia for job training services and programs, both hard skills and soft skills? How do we create a better business environment in Philadelphia? I mean, again, I just got the report this morning, flipped through some of the recommendations very, very quickly, but there is substance, there is weight, and there is imperative in this regard. There are a ton of folks out here, and Bob kind of alluded to it, but I'll speak more directly to it. When you're talking about African-American males in Philadelphia, that unemployment rate is up in the 30, 40, 50% neighborhood in some communities. When we talk about our reentry population, returning citizens, probably in many instances the same. And we've had some companies take advantage of the work that Councilman Good and I partnered on a couple years ago. He started this initiative before me, but we collaborated on this work in 2007. We're one of the only major cities in the United States of America that offers a significant tax credit for companies that give a returned citizen a job. You know, I want to talk to the councilman about how that's going and what else we might want to do in that regard. So, I mean, these are the left out and the locked out folks. And if we don't figure out how to get more and more of that population back in the workforce, back in civil society, back to taking care of themselves, then we really can't have a serious discussion about the economy of Philadelphia. We can't have a serious discussion about public safety or education or anything else. People need jobs. And that really is the bottom line. So, like I said, I'm going to read the full report. Just had a very, very quick briefing here this morning, but I think there are some exciting ideas in there and proposals, and we will take it seriously. Okay. Yeah. Hold on for 1 second. I think
One quick response to that. One of the most creative recommendations actually is related to that, and it is a direct wage subsidy. Beyond the tax credit, looking at how to provide a direct wage subsidy to employers for the hardest to employ. And we refer to it in commission meetings as a try before you buy. And so we would directly subsidize employment of the hardest to employ and then encourage those employers to keep them on long term.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering, maybe that part of this, I'm wondering if there's anything else that is in here that has not been tried before in the city or has not been thought about. I'm wondering what's, and then the other piece of it was there anything just in your conversations that you identified that you are trying that hasn't worked to date? That's just stuff that should be de-emphasized?
Real quick, just kind of touching base on response to all of your questions and the mayor and the councilman that talked about it. But the reality is there are challenges way beyond what we can see. And if you look at this group here, there's a reason why this group has been selected, because each of them in their own way, not only in their professional lives, but in their personal lives, are involved on the ground level with people that have challenges. I mean, we have a person up here who sells real estate. All right, I guess you all know who that is, right? But she also is a Democratic committee person. That means that on election day, she's talking to everybody that comes to that polling place, right? And if you know anything about polling places, it's kind of you have your own little interaction with that person. You have a person who used to work for the government in the Commerce Department. Before the ink was dry, on their pension check, they got gainfully engaged in a program that helps fathers create opportunities and become real fathers. So the folks associated with this Jobs Commission are on the ground level, way beyond our scope. I mean, the government, we create jobs and an environment on a broader level, more comprehensive approach. But these are the people that work on a day-to-day basis in the private sector on that level where they're talking to people every day. So that's why it's important, and you'll see reflected in the report that this whole issue about dealing with those people that you don't talk about and may not necessarily be in the whatever that number is for the Thursday job reports number, you know, these people know and they interact with. So it's important to have not only a mission, but it's important to have the people that we have on this particular commission. And you'll see that reflected in the reports.
Councilman Good?
It's part of why I encourage people to read the report. In the beginning of the report, you will see a list of recommendations, but further into the report, with each recommendation, we also examine what's happening in other jurisdictions. And so whether we're doing it now or whether we're not doing it, we also look at how other people are doing it.
A little more voice.
Oh, is there anything you decided to de-emphasize based on your conversations, things you have tried in the past?
I think it's a real broad conversation, And what it came down to is how do we more actively involve all the stakeholders here. There are a number of people involved in creating and retaining jobs, but not necessarily working together as much as they could, as we could be. And so you also will see within the report a list of people who are engaged in different aspects of job creation and retention. And so part of the charge is to bring those people together to better use those resources in a more efficient way.
Today, the first step of the recommendations I saw was the tax credit. So you can say, well, wow, we implemented something right now. What's the next step?
Well, at the moment, we're batting 1,000, so, yeah, I mean, not bad for a first day. Yeah, start with the hit. I mean, literally the bigger step for me, Alan and Kevin and Luke and our commerce folks and maybe some other people in government are probably a lot further along in terms of the reading of the report. First step for me is to read it, understand it, convene at least the folks that I work with, and then figure out a game plan for us. We need to do that, though, in concert with, at a minimum, the City Council, talk with the Council President, Councilman Good, and many, many others. Some of when you get to the recommendations fairly early on, there are some that are suggested may be more executive order implementation, some are legislative. All these, issues require time and study. But hopefully the theme that has come through, as I think every person who's been up to the mic has said it, is implementation is the key. We all have a role to play. This committee is serious. We take them serious. I know virtually every person on here is a serious person, and at the end, they expect us to do something. That's what we're going to do.
And one other thing, one of these charts that's really, really interesting, and like you, I just got a second to read it, is the comparison of inflow and outflow businesses, which is, I don't even know what page it's on, that's a lot to overcome. The difference is great. What do you say about, we've had, a lot of these organizations have been around for a long time, and we still have this result. Yeah. Why is that? Why do we have that result?
I'll try to give you a little bit. I saw that. I don't remember what page it's on. Some of this in the city is a result of, things that have been going on in our economy for 30, 40, 50 years. The recession certainly exacerbated them. But, like many big northeastern cities, we've been in a bit of a transition in terms of, we were, of course, once known as a workshop to the world. We made everything. We still make some things, and that's why the Manufacturing Task Force is important. But this is an economy still in Philadelphia in transition. Having said that, how we best utilize the skill sets that are here, the talent pool, the reason that companies want to move into Philadelphia or expand here is because there is a great talent base. It was said earlier, I think at this microphone, certainly in another room, that I think part of the issue is we've not always collaborated the best and maximize the outcome of the different funding sources that come in and 8 million different rules and regulations, and how do we best utilize all of the assets and the talents that we have for organizations that are engaged and involved. I think this report and the work of the Commission will help that process enormously. The real bottom line here is we're all in this together. We have a great document and a blueprint to utilize, to point us in a particular direction on a number of different issues. And if we stay focused and don't get caught up in the, at times, the background noise and the chatter out there, we could actually get some things done. Last question. Yes, sir.
On the subject a little bit, but about jobs. The school board keeping 10 schools open.
I'm sorry?
The school board keeping 10 schools open with jobs and all. What's your reaction on that? School board?
Yeah, I'd be glad to talk to you about that in a few minutes. I'm taking questions about this particular issue. That's a much larger issue. That's about the education of our children. So I'll be glad to talk to you about that later. Thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate you coming. Take care. Bye-bye.